Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm ExxotikGaming. Mobile gaming is in a really good spot right now in 2023. There are so many cool games coming out like Valorant Mobile, Warzone Mobile, and Delta Force Hawk Ops, and there are even more that just recently released like Arena Breakout, Roblox Frontlines, and Undawn. Unfortunately, not everything is all roses and butterflies in the mobile gaming space, and over the years, it has gotten more and more competitive. Gone are the days where you can have these mediocre titles rise to stardom. It seems like every game nowadays is attached to a mega company like Tencent, Activision, or EA. More mobile games fail now than at any other point in history, and in today's video, I'd like to show you all 10 different mobile first-person and third-person shooting games that failed. This is part 2. I did part 1 not too long ago, so if you like this video, feel free to check out the other one, which I will link down below in the description. Leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe for more mobile gaming content just like this, and let's jump into this. So, getting things started, here's a game you may be shocked is already on this list, Payday Crime War. Maybe you aren't exactly amazed this game did fail, but how quickly it did is probably pretty surprising. The Payday series is a cooperative first-person shooter series, mainly PvE games, where you're a whole team of criminals that perform various heists around the world, including robbing banks, casinos, art galleries, and more. The heists are randomly generated, and games like Payday 2, for instance, have a super loyal fan base even after 10 years since its release. Payday Crime War was supposed to be the mobile version of Payday 2, but sadly, it just wasn't very good. I made a video on it not too long ago, and it honestly felt like a game from 2015. I think the devs seriously underestimated how good mobile games are nowadays, and the game was pretty much destined to fail. On October 3rd of this year, they announced that they canceled the game, and the game shut down just a couple of days ago on the 10th of October. That's the legacy of Payday on mobile devices, and while it is sad, I think the devs learned a valuable lesson. Continuing on, the second game on this list was straight up one of my favorite mobile first-person shooters back in the day, FireFront. This NetEase game was awesome and did so many things right, and still to this day was the best game like Valorant on both iOS and Android devices. There was even a light version of the game which made it so if you had a low-end device, you could still play FireFront. FireFront skyrocketed in popularity after it first released in July 2022, but unfortunately, not even a year later, the game got sued by Riot Games because it was too similar to their hit game Valorant. You can't really blame Riot though. Their lawyer literally said, "We don't think changing the color of a character's ability or slightly modifying the visual appearance changes the fact that it's copyright infringement. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig." It's an interesting comparison, but it does make sense. So unfortunately, FireFront put out a tweet on April 3rd of this year that said this, and on April 10th, 2023, the game finally shut down for good. That was the end of FireFront on iOS and Android. Moving along, we have a bit of a controversial game, New State Mobile. This is one of the only games on this list that hasn't fully failed yet. It has declined heavily, but it's still around, and it still has a real chance of coming back. Now, I really like this game. This game is essentially the new age, more futuristic version of PUBG Mobile. PUBG Mobile has been out for many years, and to me, it makes sense that they would have wanted to reinvent the whole idea of PUBG on mobile devices with a fresh coat of paint, so to speak. The game was released worldwide on November 11th, 2021 for both iOS and Android devices, and it actually did really well in the beginning. It got over 50 million downloads within the first month, but the big problem with the game was it didn't differentiate itself enough from PUBG Mobile. PUBG players are super loyal to their game, and you gotta release a good game to get them to switch. I think the devs had much bigger hopes for this game, that it literally would replace PUBG Mobile, but that never ended up happening, and because of that, this game fell way short of expectations, and I guess it sort of failed. Next up, let's talk about an old mobile Call of Duty game that you may have never heard of before, Call of Duty Strike Team. This was a tactical shooter game published by Activision in September 2013 and set in the Black Ops story arc, where you had two modes on release, Campaign and Survival. Campaign was interesting. You could switch from a first-person perspective to an overhead drone's perspective to command your squad and complete objectives. Survival mode was just like the classic Modern Warfare 3 survival mode, where you would fight off infinite waves of AI zombies. They eventually added 2 more modes, time attack mode as well as domination mode, but that was it. You might notice that this game did not have a multiplayer mode. That was the biggest issue this game faced. It cost $6.99 to download this game, and most people couldn't justify paying this much for a game that didn't have a multiplayer aspect to it. IGN had some pretty harsh things to say about this game, and yeah, this game just never took off. It got shut down a few years after release, and that was the end. Another game that unfortunately was shut down rather quickly was Rogue Company Elite. Yes, I'm sure you know about this game. I've talked about it a lot on my channel. I really think this game had a ton of potential. It was the mobile version of the game Rogue Company, a free-to-play third-person shooter released in 2020 by Hi-Rez Studios. In the game, you can choose from a roster of elite mercenaries, each with their own unique weapons, gadgets, and abilities. Rogue Company Elite had lots of different game modes, including Team Deathmatch, Demolition, King of the Hill, Strikeout, and more. I loved how good this game felt. You can see that from my videos. 120 FPS and great gameplay mechanics. Seriously, it was so much fun. Unfortunately, the game just didn't show any sign of potential according to the developers. It had its soft launch in Mexico on iOS in January 2023, but by July of 2023, Hi-Rez Studios announced that the game's global launch was put on indefinite hold. Servers were shut down, and that was it. I guess the game could have some crazy return in the future because it's not entirely canceled. It's just on an indefinite hold, but I'm not really too optimistic. I think this game is probably gone for good. Yet another game that is unfortunately gone for good is Creative Destruction. If you've been around the mobile gaming scene for a while, then I'm sure you know about this game. This was Fortnite Mobile before Fortnite Mobile was a thing. When Fortnite exploded in popularity in late 2017, early 2018, NetEase wanted to get in on the action, just like they did with Rules of Survival versus PUBG Mobile, and they created a game called Fortcraft. Fortcraft was the original version of Creative Destruction, and it had everything you'd hope for in a mobile Fortnite game. Ironically, I would almost go as far to say that it literally was better than Fortnite Mobile back when Fortnite Mobile first released. It had that third-person aspect, it had the same cartoony graphic style, the same types of weapon rarities, shields, and items, and of course it had building. The game came out in a beta literally just a few days before Fortnite Mobile, and despite it being very similar to Fortnite's, it never got sued by Epic Games. I guess Epic Games just never saw them as a serious threat. Creative Destruction always had a much smaller player base, and it eventually got shut down on June 27, 2022. It never did as well as Fortnite Mobile, and I guess you could say it sort of failed. Moving along, we have another game that had so much potential, but just didn't quite live up to expectations. This game is called the Respawnables, and it was a free-to-play third-person multiplayer shooting game for both iOS and Android devices. It was developed by Digital Legends, the same developers who are working on Warzone Mobile right now, and the game allowed you to customize your characters, weapons, and skills, and participate in both online or offline game modes. This game had a really cartoonish style, kind of like Fortnite. There were over 600 different outfits, hairstyles, and accessories to create your own unique look in battle, and there were lots of really cool maps to fight in. The game did really well for a long time, since 2012 when it first released, but over time, it started to face some big issues like lack of innovation and creativity, becoming increasingly pay to win, as well as a lot of ads and pop-ups that mess with gameplay, financial difficulties, and of course the fact that it was an old game. Newer titles like COD Mobile unfortunately just made this game obsolete over time, and even though it probably could have lasted a few more years before they finally did close it down just because it was so old at that point, it got shut down in January 2022, 10 years after release. Getting closer and closer to the end, the 8th game that we need to talk about is Hopeless Land: Fight for Survival. This is another game that had high hopes of becoming PUBG Mobile before PUBG ever came out for mobile devices. It was developed by HK Hero Entertainment, and you could play the game's alpha and beta versions as early as the end of 2017. It was a 121-player battle royale game where you fought on a big island until the last man wins the match. This game really had a chance to be massive when it first came out in the very beginning of 2018, before PUBG Mobile released, but the devs didn't really capitalize on it. It had a lot of technical issues like lagging and glitching, and it didn't have the best graphics, controls, or optimization compared to PUBG Mobile. In my opinion, if a game wanted to compete with PUBG Mobile, it needed to be even more optimized than the real thing, like Rules of Survival, for instance. Hopeless Land just wasn't that. There were too many other Battle Royale games like PUBG Mobile, and it didn't really differentiate itself enough from PUBG Mobile, and in the end, the game's servers were shut down on November 27th, 2020, and that was the end. The second to last game that we got to talk about is Final Fantasy VII First Soldier. This game lasted less time than almost any other game I have ever seen before. It was a complete and utter failure. This was a free-to-play multiplayer battle royale game released on November 17th, 2021, published by the company Square Enix, and was part of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, a collection of spin-off games related to the original Final Fantasy VII released in 1997. It was a really unique battle royale in that it combined elements from the original Final Fantasy VII, such as the same characters, rideable monsters, magic, enemies, and more. You could customize your character and choose a unique battle skill that would help you gain a certain edge in battle. It had a lot of different game modes like ranked, blitz modes, seasonal event modes, and more. But the game just didn't really meet the demands and expectations of players. It had kinda clunky mechanics, low player retention, poor management, lack of updates, and a lot more issues, and because of this, it shut down a little over a year after its release. It was a massive fail, and even games like New State Mobile looked like a massive success in comparison to it. And finally, the last game we gotta talk about is Rules of Survival 2.0. Not the original Rules of Survival, because I really can't say that game was a failure. It lasted a good amount of time, it was at the top of the charts for a while, and it performed even better than the developers expected in the beginning. However, Rules of Survival was an old game from 2017, and many years after release, it was in a really bad state. Most people moved on from Rules of Survival and were playing games like PUBG Mobile, Battlegrounds Mobile India, Apex Legends Mobile, or maybe even COD Mobile Battle Royale. In January 2022, the developers made one last Hail Mary attempt to bring the game back from the dead, and they re-released the game entirely with a new game mode similar to Escape from Tarkov. You know Arena Breakout? Yeah, this was sort of like Arena Breakout, but with Rules of Survival graphics and gameplay mechanics. It really wasn't that bad of a game, and it had a lot of really nice features, including a trading market, weapon modification, and multiple different maps, but the update ended up doing more harm than good. No one was excited to play it, and it never really revived the game from the dead in the first place. Unfortunately, the game was shut down on June 27th, 2022, and that was the end of an era. And that's it. Hey, we're not going to leave this video on a sad note. Just because these games failed isn't really a terrible thing. Developers will learn from their mistakes and hopefully make even better games in the future. Take a look at NetEase. They've learned from their mistakes over the years, and they're making better and better games over time. You now have upcoming games like Once Human by NetEase, which looks incredible, and it looks a world better than some of their earlier titles like Rules of Survival 2.0, for instance. And Digital Legends. They took their experience with Respawnables as well as their other game that failed after Pulse, and they're hopefully going to use that experience to make Warzone Mobile even better. Hey, only time will tell, right? I hope you all did enjoy this video. If you did, please take a second and leave a like and subscribe for more mobile gaming content just like this. Check out part 1, linked down below in the description, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next episode.